Yo, 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 another guitar lesson here. We're going to talk about chord progressions and just kind of the different levels and layers you can see within a chord progression, and you can kind of see how why we think of them in this regard, and then how much depth it actually has. Because a lot of times when you're studying music theory, and when people maybe shy away from music theory, it's because they think it's kind of a little too rigid, a little too formulaic. But in this lesson, I'm just going to kind of give you some insight as to what the possibilities are, just a few of the possibilities. I'm going to kind of show you how to, it's kind of going to be kind of an ear training lesson, so you can kind of hear what's going on, and I'll just kind of explain to you what's going on. So there's just going to be different levels. And if you're working on training your ear and you're trying to learn songs by ear, it's really important to start with the bass. So if you can recognize the root note, it makes life a lot easier, rather than just trying to digest the whole chord, because that can get a little confusing. I know that's a little bit of a roadblock that I ran into. So we're going to just take a look at a 1, 6, 4, 5 progression. So the first thing you'd want to do, the most simplest motion, would just be the root note of each chord. So if we're in G, 1 would be the G, and then E would be 6, and then C would be 4, and then D would be 5. And you can see this come right out of the G major scale if you wanted to, and then go up to the 6th note here, and then 4, and then 5. Now if we did power chords, we're adding the 5th to the note. So it's a 2-note chord. So it would sound more like this. And that's pretty, that's something you hear quite a bit. I'm sure you've probably heard that motion before. Now we're going to make a triad. So we've got okay, and then we could build on those triads and make them full chords. So we could do, which is the same notes, it's just we're adding a register, we're adding another octave to the chord. And this is really common. You just have G major, E minor, C major, and D major. Okay? Now, that's usually where a lot of people stop, because you can do a lot with that, especially if you're a songwriter. It kind of evokes some emotion there, and you can just kind of layer some lyrics on top of that. Obviously, you can change the rhythm. You can do a lot of different, timbres with it, different tones and things like that, a different key even. But let's just stick with the key of G, and let's see what the next harmonic choice would be to add the 7th note in the scale, because triads are the 1st, 3rd, and 5th note. So then we're just going to add the 7th. So we're going to make these 7th chords. So you'd sound like this. You got G major 7, E minor 7, C major 7, D dominant 7. So that's adding some depth to it for sure. And then once you're there, if you realize that, obviously you don't have to play them all in 7ths. You could do, G major and then E minor 7, and then C major 7, and then maybe just end on a regular D, just a triad. You can mix and match all of that. And now you're kind of starting to see, we've started from this foundation of just the root movement, and we're just adding notes, layers of harmony to it. And the more complex it gets, the more options you have in as far as writing music. Also, just understanding music and hearing these, the more you practice moving through these motions, moving through these chords, improvising over these chords, the more intuitive it becomes. And then after that, we could do maybe like, we could add the 9 if we wanted to, or the 11. So G major, maybe I'll just do it down here. It's just a little easier to grab the 9 down here. So the G major 11 or G major 9 would be something like this. A little large, so, and then E minor 9, C major 7 sharp 11, and then D dominant 9. Let's try that again and see. So I kind of mixed a little bit of the sevenths in there too. And so that is starting to get jazzier. It's getting a little more out there. You know, that C major 7 sharp 11, get a little tension in there. As you keep adding notes, you're going to start feeling different emotions, more tension. It's going to be not obvious how to use some of these chords to make them flow. That's one of the reasons why some of the best musicians, you might hear some really kind of wild chords that they've been able to utilize because they've really listened and they understand and they can feel the music and where it's going, and they can resolve any kind of tension like that. So now this is all, I'm basically playing all of this also in just basic inversions of these chords. So I could also just move around the fretboard utilizing all that information. Do a little example here for you where I'll just kind of improvise, and I'm just going to do different inversions of these chords. So if I've got the 1 chord, 6, 4, just a short little example there of how I'm kind of bouncing around. I mean, you can obviously do slash chords too, so something like this. So changing the bass note, but you're keeping the bass note is still in the chord, so there's just another level of looking at it. So if this makes sense to you, I hope you learned something. And of course, you know, hit me up with any questions. If there's any specific, you know, version of that you'd like me to focus on and dive a little deeper in, this is kind of just scratching the surface. And again, I'm keeping it kind of simple as far as the progression goes. This is a very standard progression in music. You hear it a lot. And if you start practicing it, you might even recognize, like, you know, you're just listening to music, just minding your own business, and you might hear that progression. Oh, that's a 1, 6, 4, 5 progression. So yeah, check it out. And again, hope you guys are doing well. Peace out.